Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 29, another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So as ever, let's crack on. First one is Shopify. Now this is the next part of their Operation Chaos Monkey, as they called it. There was a tweet in January, I think it was, which was basically saying we are waging war on meetings within our business, our company. They had 3 rules at the time, so cancel all meetings with more than 3 people in it, reinstate no meeting Wednesdays, and remove needless Slack channels. So if you work in tech, you probably know about those needless Slack channels. And their latest thing is this cost calculator for meetings. So here's an example meeting they published, and at the bottom of it you can see there's an estimated meeting cost. Now it's clearly based on each person's day rate or hourly rate times the meeting length. So that's kind of interesting. Would this be available at your company? Because clearly what that also means is transparency of what people are earning, because if you're like me, I would immediately go and try to do one-on-one meetings with people just to see how the estimated cost would go up and down, see what people are actually earning. So who'd have thought? But if you can imagine seeing this at your business, I think that'd be really interesting. So well done Shopify for several layers of what's going on there, and I love calling out the cost of meetings. This is Claude 2, so this is OpenAI's or ChatGPT's probably new rival. So this is obviously the second version of Claude, and I've had a go with it and it's really impressive. Now it's really impressive for a couple of things. The main thing is you can upload training data. So I'm uploading some PDFs here. I'm asking it from the last 5 weeks of the Dinosaw, ingest all of this stuff and tell me which 5 should I video or create videos of on TikTok. I haven't done that yet. But tell me which 5 are worthy of a TikTok video and tell me why. And it's got some really, really good advice in there. So with ChatGPT, the public version, you can't upload stuff just like this. So that's what's these training tokens, these words that you can get it to read or to base its intelligence on. So there's some cool things about this. It's a lot cheaper than ChatGPT. It's trained on license or agreed data. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. I haven't gone into it too far, but it's more like, you know, that data that you've been worrying about that's in ChatGPT, this is probably a bit safer. Can't really justify that or can't really tell you much about that, but that's what they're saying. It's got 100,000 tokens, so how much can you train it on in the prompt? And it's available in the UK and the US at the moment, as you're seeing here. So sign up to it. Within seconds, you can be doing exactly what I'm doing and uploading some things. The usual caveats, I assume, I haven't read all the terms and conditions, but I'm assuming everything that you type into this goes and they can see it, I assume, at this point. So don't put anything dodgy or don't put any sort of, proprietary code or anything that's private into it, I assume. But there you go. Other than that, it's doing some quite interesting stuff. I quite like that. This is an app, this is called BeMyEyes, and I signed up to this about 7 years ago, and it allows people with sight loss to ask somebody for some help. So I signed up to it as a volunteer, and actually only got two calls from this. And what they would do is they'd introduce themselves, say, look, okay, is it beans or is it a can of soup in front of me? And you'd say the one in your right hand is a can of beans. They go, thank you very much. And that was pretty much it. So scroll forward 7 years, and now they've done a hookup with OpenAI, and they can now use conversational AI with vision, for instance, computer vision, and they can then say, right, okay, we know what's going on in the scene because you can use your camera. We can turn that into some sort of words or sentences, and you can interact with it using sentences as well. And we can do text to speech, speech to text, and then we can use the vision to then figure out what's going on. So all of a sudden, you don't need humans. You can actually use visual assistants. So this is one of those things where if you're worrying about, are we taking jobs away from people? This is something that actually needs volunteers that are hard to find, and now you can create almost infinite volunteers for this. So it's only going to be helpful. So if you're worrying about AI being bad, then this is a really good example of it being good. So not launched yet, but that makes complete sense, and I like the way that's going. Actually, this is OpenAI again, so a little bit of bashing on OpenAI, or praising as well, but this is Sarah Silverman, who is a comedian, and 2 other writers in this case. So they are taking OpenAI to court in the US, at district court, for copyright infringement, and it all centers around the books and the data that the OpenAI system was trained on, and not knowing exactly what was trained on it. And if your copyrighted works was used to train a system that is used for commercial good or for commercial use, then there might be something there that you need to say, look, stop doing that, and we need to sort of, as an industry, have this conversation. So it's being had in the courts as we speak. So it really comes around is how identifiable are the copyrighted works in the training data. Now, it gets a little bit murkier as well, because it turns out a lot of the training data was collected from these cohorts of data which were called shadow libraries. And these are, yeah, it's a loads of artworks or books or whatever it is, but they'd kind of just been kind of squished into one place, and they'd lost their lineage, or they'd lost their sort of who owns them and their copyright status. So it's going into that sort of murky world of saying, how strict should this be, and how obvious should it be that a piece of work that's gone into a training data is either allowed or it's used, but it's referenced, or it's not allowed at all. So we watch that, because that will become case law probably. This is a Fractal Vice. This is not technology or media, but you do need to know about these, because this is just amazing. I found out about these a couple of years ago. So this was like the Hand Tool Rescue, as a YouTube channel I follow, and they rescue hand tools. They do all the renovation of it, and it's just really good slow watching as far as I'm concerned. And they found one of the original ones of these vices, and they renovated it, and it was fascinating. And as you can see, it's a vice that has nested little teeth within it. So you've got teeth within smaller teeth within smaller teeth, and they can grip irregular items like this, and it acts like a fractal, which is amazing. So Adam Savage, who you might know from Mythbusters, has also a brilliant channel on YouTube. If you are into this sort of thing, you absolutely need to follow him. He found one of these on Alibaba, about $2,500 if you want one of these, but takes it to pieces, improves it a little bit, and takes you through it. It is fantastic. So I think they were patented in the 1920s, so it's not a new thing. But if you didn't know about these, now you do. You're welcome. DynlBaR, basically this is neural dynamic image-based rendering. So what you're seeing here is, if you know what NeRFs are, so these are radiance fields. So it's essentially using, traditionally you'd use a lot of photographs, you'd put it into a system, and it would create this kind of 3D version of what those photographs were taken from, and you could then put cameras into that thing, and you could create a 3D scene, or you could almost like recreate a 3D model from photographs. So that's the NeRFs thing. But what this does is it just use what they call monocular, a single point of view video, to do, broadly speaking, the same thing within its boundaries. So these take just a single video, and from that video it can then try and figure out what the world looks like, and then you can start doing things like moving the camera, you can lock the camera, you can do these kind of dolly zooms or bullet time effects, where you can then start sort of bringing out the foreground and the background and changing the point of the vision. And you can also do things like this, which is tracking shot. You can stabilize the camera, you can do all sorts of really interesting things. So previously you'd have had to use there are some other ways that do this, and they're not particularly great, and this is a real step forward. So there used to be a thing called a litro camera, which just sort of took, a bit like ray tracing, just took all the light in a space and then turned it into this really weird file that you can then turn back into a 3D space. And this is just doing it with a single video. So potentially, if you are a videographer and you have some video, you now have a really interesting extra kind of past the point of taking the footage control over the editing as well. So really like that. So demo at the moment. And finally we have Quision, which is obviously a bit of a piss take of the Apple Vision Pro. So they announced it a couple of weeks ago. You will not see this thing for a couple of years, and it's going to be fiercely expensive. However, one of the big things that sort of everybody was talking about was this facial tracking within the actual headset itself, and then the projection of that onto the outside of the device. So this is Adam from YouTube. Only has 1 or 2 videos, so you can't really say much about Adam, but I really like what he's doing here. Is using a Meta Quest Pro, which does have those little kind of facial tracking cameras on the inside of it, and is then really just attaching it through Wi-Fi to the iPhone on the front of it. So is using sort of point projection and all that sort of stuff to get the point of vision right, and a little 3D printed knickknack on the top of it where you can then clip in your camera. So a little bit of a piss take, as I said, but I really like that where this is going. And he's got another mode where you can kind of swipe on it, you can play games, like it puts a ball inside the headset and you can kind of move it around a little bit. So I kind of like that, just a bit of fun. So well done you. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful, and if it was, give it a share. Try and share it with as many people as you possibly can, impress them, and I will see you next week.